Hey guys, welcome back to another Napoleon Total War online multiplayer battle. This is a 1v1 battle, so it's not going to take up too much of your time. I like playing the 1v1 battles sometimes because if you want to knock out a quick skirmish with a player online, it's fun to do, especially when you don't have a lot of time to commit to those massive 3v3, 2v2 battles that I've put up on the channel before. I'm commanding the armies of France today. My opponent, who has a nameless plate, he has no name, but I know he's a human player, so we'll just call him Nameless for the video's sake, is in command of the armies of Prussia. I have brought with me to the battlefield a special guest today. We brought with us Napoleon Bonaparte. There he is, the L'Empereur himself. Take a look at my army composition. I brought with me 1 unit of cuirassiers. I brought with me 1 unit of the 5th Regiment de Hussars. I've brought with me 2 units of Old Guard, 4 units of Fusiliers of the Line, 2 regiments of Swiss Foot, 2 regiments of the Polish Legion, 3 regiments of the Voltigeurs, and 1 8-pound foot artillery. Take a look at our Prussian opponent here. He's brought with him also a historical special guest today. He's brought with him Count von Gneisenau. Don't really know the historical significance of the general. I'm more familiar with Blücher, but there he is, Count von Gneisenau in all of his Prussian glory. My Prussian opponent has brought with him on the battlefield 2 units of the Foot Guards, 1 unit of the 8th Life Regiment, 5 units of the Musketeers. He's brought with him 1 regiment of Landwehr, which is kind of like a militia unit. There they are right there, holding out in the rear. He brought with him 1 unit of Cuirassier. He brought with him 2 units of Hussars and 2 units of Lancer Cav. So, also, and 1 unit of foot artillery. We're going to pause the game here real quick just so we can take a look at the battlefield. We are playing on the grassy flatlands map, so you can see that there's not a lot of elevated terrain on this map. It's pretty flat. But it offers a wide field to engage in some pretty gorgeous line battles, which is why I like playing in grassy flatlands. Also, it makes it challenging for somebody to just sit and do nothing, particularly when you brought artillery to the battlefield, which is what the both of us have done. The rules in this game were to max of 4 light infantry and 1 unit of artillery. No rockets, no howitzers, just regular foot artillery. So we each have 1 artillery, and yeah, so we're gonna get this game started. One of the things that I want to point out about the grassy flatlands map, which was part of my strategy going into this game, is that my experience is that a lot of players enjoy camping on these kinds of maps where they're wide open, their flanks, they can easily secure their flanks with cavalry units, which is what my Prussian player has done. So we're not going to play by those rules. We're going to play things a little bit differently. As you can see on the mini-map, I'm the blue. My opponent, the Prussian opponent, is the red. I've spread my forces out a little bit to try and divert away from the center, because as you can see, the Prussian player, he's pretty much taken a long, thick line right here in the center with his artillery, comfy cozy, right there in the middle. And as you can see, he's put down stakes, so he is planning on digging in, which was my initial thought process, that I knew that the Prussian player was going to play a defensive battle. So we're going to try and knock him off of his feet a little bit. I have already dispatched my cavalry unit to the far right flank, the far French right flank, his far left flank, to try and play around with him a little bit, toy with him a little bit. And with my infantry units, what we have done is, again, diverted left of center, and we are going to dispatch the main body of my force, which are the Fusiliers of the Line. We are going to push heavy over on the Prussian right flank to try and draw his attention in 2 directions, with my cavalry on the far left and my infantry on the far my cavalry on the far right and my infantry on the far left. We're going to set up our foot artillery here in the center to try and put down as much fire as we can down on the center line of the Prussians, so that will keep him occupied in the center and keep him from moving in either direction, so that way they can soak up a little bit of that artillery. Should be a good strategy, so let's see how it pans out. Go back to normal speed. I've also dispatched each regiment of Old Guard to either flank. They will prove critical in the battle ahead. but they're going to be bringing up both the extreme left and the extreme right of my lines to put down some heavy flanking fire on the Prussian extremes on either side. My foot artillery getting set up here. Let's see if we can catch a volley off from them. There they go. So we're going to score a few hits there with that artillery barrage. We got their Landwehr, but we didn't really get any other kills. Prussia's going to notice this, and he's going to divert his troops away from the center, keep his troops from stacking up like this. The critical part of the plan about pushing left of center is to try and see if we can draw the Prussian opponent out of this nice comfy position that he's found himself in. And as you can see, he's already beginning to answer that by drawing his troops on the left far out into the open, which is what I like to see. That was kind of the goal of this push. And the cavalry unit off on the his extreme left is going to taunt him into sending and dispatching his cavalry units off into that direction, which is what he is going to do now. And pretty shortly here, we're going to get a nice cav charge. Take a look at the rest of the battlefield real quick. We are beginning to set up the process of establishing our V along this Prussian exposed right flank. So that is going to prove critical in the battle ahead. Trying to force him to meet our lines, or else he's going to run the risk of getting flanked and his entire army get furled up on the battlefield. Now Prussia going in for a cav charge almost immediately on the onset of this battle. We're going to meet that charge with our cuirassiers. Heavy cav going against light cav is going to be a little bit of a problem for the Prussian player, as he only brought light cav to this side of the battlefield. He does have a unit of cuirassier bringing up the rear, but we are already going to get this battle started with a juicy cav charge. Meanwhile, while the cav engagement is underway, the Prussian player is going to divert his troops to meet the French advance. Right now, he has set up his troops on the extreme left in a V formation to try and meet my incoming French troops here on my far right. And I am going to be mirroring his actions by setting up a V on my far left to meet his exposed right flank on this side of the battlefield. Let's take a look back at that cav charge. Cav engagement still underway. Unfortunately, here soon I am going to lose that unit of hussars that I brought to the battlefield with me. My cuirassiers, though, doing a pretty good job at keeping the cavalry contingent on the far right at bay, keeping them from harassing my lines in the far back. We are going to break one unit of lancers, so that is very good. These guys were at a significant amount of strength. They had about 14 men in their contingent, so that is going to be good, getting them out of the battlefield quickly so as to keep them from coming back to the battlefield and harassing our troops in the back. Now, that is where we lost our hussars. They are going to break and depart from the battlefield. So now it is just heavy cav on heavy cav, and we are going to engage in with these cuirassiers, try and do as much damage as we can. We're both at orange morale, but the Prussians do have the advantage on us just because they arrived at the engagement a little bit later. And unfortunately, we are going to lose this cuirassier unit here pretty shortly. Prussian player finally meeting my advance on his far right flank. He is going to refuse his line ever so slightly at a nice, I don't know what you call this, 100-degree angle. As you recall, he was set up just in a long, straight line. But this proved critical, this little push right here. We are going to engage in this maneuver further. We're going to try and press the issue, try and see if we can either push his line into a perfect 90-degree angle or try and draw him out in the open. No action as of yet on my center. Right now, what we want these guys to be doing is just holding here, waiting for the opportune moment to push forward and add pressure to the Prussian center to keep him from maneuvering and pushing reserve units off onto his far left or his far right, which is what we're going to be doing now. We're dispatching our Swiss foot to meet the rest of the lines. Now, we did unfortunately lose that French unit of cuirassiers, and I actually in the battle itself forgot about this Prussian unit of cuirassiers hanging off. I thought they had routed, but they came back from the battlefield. In fact, they never left, but I had just completely forgot that they were there. So Prussia is actually going to get a pretty good hit over at my artillery off here in the back, and I looked at my unit tab earlier when I was playing this game, and I realized that my artillery was gone, and I had no idea what took out my artillery. Turns out it was these guys. So always important to keep a little bit of situational awareness about yourself. We are going to move our skirmishers up to try and meet the Prussians. The Prussian skirmishers do have a very good range on our guys right now. The Prussian skirmishers, the Jaegers, they have a better range than regular Voltigeurs. So right now my guys are just soaking up the lead that these guys are putting down range right now. So this is going to be a little bit of a problem. We're going to try and move up a little bit. Meanwhile, the Prussians are doing the same thing to us as we were doing to them just moments ago. They're going to try and kite our forces with these 2 units of lancers. Luckily, I have my old guard here holding out on the flank. We are going to refuse our lines to meet any charge that they push. The Prussians, knowing that they're within range of my Voltigeurs, they are going to pull back even more. So he is going to try and bring me as close to the back of the map as he possibly can. And we are going to move up once more with our French Voltigeurs. The Prussian Jaegers are going to return fire in an aggressive manner. So it's going to be up to my guys to get set up and into position quickly so as to return fire. And that is exactly what we are going to do. The Voltigeurs answer the fire from the Prussian Jaegers, and we are going to meet that attack. My Voltigeurs on this side of the battlefield, a little bit out of position right now, too far separated from my main lines. That's when I noticed the danger of that. I'm going to rush these troops up to try and provide some covering fire for these guys so as to provide support and push these Jaegers back. The Prussian player, noticing this movement on his left, he's going to push forward his units of line infantry up to his far left as well to meet the onset of the French advance. My old guard bringing up the right flank, and they are going to get themselves set up on the extreme right of the French lines to try and lay down fire into this approaching unit of foot guards, which is also an elite unit of the Prussian army. So these guys, already we are beginning to see the setup emerging for the upcoming line battle. Now here is where I lost track of in the game. I did not know that this was happening behind me, but I did lose my artillery, unfortunately, very early in the game. The Prussian player doing a very good job bringing his cavalry way far out into the far back, and they'll take out this 8-pounder foot artillery early. So that's a very good win for the Prussians right there. But at this point, the line battle is commencing. There's really nothing else that I really need my artillery for. So I was willing to take that as a loss. We're getting our troops set up, getting ready for the line battle that's about to occur. The Prussians getting an early drop on us. They're bringing in their units of foot guards and their light regiment. However, we are going to meet them with the first volley. And the line battle on the French right, on the French left, the Prussian right, has commenced. And the battle has now been joined. I have my old guard in a very good flanking position on these Prussian foot guards. And we are going to continue to put down fire onto the Prussian extreme left. If I were the Prussian player, I would have maneuvered my lines ever so slightly backwards a little bit. I would have engaged in more of a radial maneuver. I wouldn't have set up in a long line like this because that gives my troops the liberty to extend their lines far out and get behind or at least around the edges of the Prussian extreme left. Now the Prussians going in for a cav charge right here. They did try and take out my old guard. Luckily, we did form square, but he sees my general, Napoleon himself, sitting right here in the middle. So he's going to try and go in for a general snipe, try and take them out. The Prussian cav in the back did get caught in an ugly crossfire here between the two French squares. But he is now going to try and charge into my Voltigeurs, knowing that Napoleon is too far out of range, and try and take them out. Noticing the Prussian cav behind me, I'm going to form up in the square. Try and get some shots off on this Prussian cav here. They should be dealt with pretty quickly in quick order. However, that unit of cuirassiers coming back from the fight. I had no idea that these guys were behind me this entire time.
Sir, our general is under attack.
Napoleon is in a very precarious position here as he is going to gun straight for my general. And it's a little bit of confusion right here on the French left. That Prussian cav really confused the lines here. We are going to drive them off. However, my guys are in square formation, and that is a good opportunity for the Prussians to exploit here while my men are vulnerable, and that is exactly what he is going to do, continuing to lay down fire into my guys. Prussian cav charging in directly into Napoleon himself, and Napoleon finds himself caught in the thick of this fight. He's going to run out a little bit, try and run to safety. In typical Napoleon fashion, he runs himself out a little too far in advance of his troops, and now he is going to find himself in the middle of no man's land between the French and the Prussian volleys. We're going to see this as oops. And we're going to try and turn around, get Napoleon out of there as fast as he can. He does lose a little bit of his staff, but Napoleon will make it out of there safely. And the Prussian cuirassiers that are harassing my lines will rout here momentarily. The Old Guard continuing to do a good job on the far French right, the far Prussian left, in laying down flanking fire on this unit of foot guards who are continuing to retreat, refusing their lines, pushing back a little bit against this French flanking maneuver. Still just a skirmish here on the far French left. We are going to move these lines up because they are taking some pretty heavy fire from these Prussian Jaegers, and we are going to get the line battle underway here on the far left. Prussian player having a little bit of a better position than me right now. My guys did take some pretty heavy damage from that earlier engagement here. However, we are going to meet the Prussians in full force, and we are going to engage here in this line battle momentarily. Prussians getting off the first volley. However, my Old Guard will return fire here. We're going to try and maneuver our voltigeurs around the far left French line. As you can see here, the deployment tab, we are going to try and deploy these guys. That's the thing about skirmishers. Once when the line battles commence, you can still use these guys pretty effectively as flankers. Look at this line battle. Now we have broken the Prussian left flank. We are going to push these guys out of the fight. The Prussian Fusiliers doing a pretty good job at holding off the advance of the French. However, they are and now they break. So they were doing a good job. Skirmishers setting up, getting some good flanking shots off on the 8th Life Regiment here, and they are going to try and refuse and radial turn to the right, sidestep to try and meet both the voltigeurs and the Old Guard. However, they may be a little overwhelmed right here. They have 3 regiments putting down fire onto this one unit, so they are in a little bit of trouble. Prussian player turning his artillery to canister shot. They are a little bit out of range. The canister always does pretty good job of cutting down the lines that are in opposition to you, which is why you never really want to get your line infantry too close to these guns, because they will do some nasty damage to your guys. We're going to bring up the French right here, meet the Prussian, continuing to pursue them as they're falling back. Now that we have the advantage here on the right, we're going to press that as much as we can to continue to apply pressure, because this line battle is on the left is beginning to, it's still a little balanced right now. We did manage to rout the 8th Life Regiment, so now we are going to put down fire here on the rest of the Prussian right. Try and drive them out. My voltigeurs moving around the extreme left of the French line to continue to get shots off on the Prussian right. And the Prussians are beginning to lose morale here. The lines are beginning to get a little shaky. Another unit, a foot guard unit, now retreating from the fight. Now we do have some holes in the lines. We did lose a couple regiments, but at this point, the Prussians are beginning to waver here in this fight. So it's only a matter of time before the entire Prussian right breaks from this pressure. There goes another regiment of Fusiliers. However, we do have the drop on the Prussians. He is outpositioned and outflanked. Over here on the Prussian left, continuing to put down pressure.
Our men are running, sir.
I am going to lose that unit of Voltigeurs. However, we are doing a pretty good job at keeping the Prussians at bay here, keeping him and preventing him from maneuvering a unit of reserves over to his right to reinforce. Swiss foot putting in work, and the Polish Legion putting in work. The Polish Legion, I'm sorry. The Swiss foot ran. The Poles stayed. Prussia attempting to go in for a bayonet charge. They are going to break here very quickly. And the Old Guard are now going to go in for a bayonet charge, pushing in and doing the final bit of work on the Prussian far right and folding up that flank and pushing all the way down, rolling up the entire Prussian army. The Prussian general going in for a glorious charge into the lines. However, he is going to break almost immediately from the fight. Napoleon hanging back in the center, boosting the morale of the troops. Oh, I said the Swiss foot ran. Never mind. There they are. Gallantly holding the center line. Old Guard continuing to push in, folding in the entire Prussian center. And the Prussian player, at this point in the battle, realized that he had lost the game. And he is going to go in for a square formation to hold off the advancing madmen of the Old Guard. These guys are very good in melee. You really don't want to cross blades with them. They always enjoy getting into a good melee fight, and their beaver pelt hats intimidating in a bayonet fight. Old Guard on this side doing the exact same thing, making a last-ditch push for the artillery, and this fight has concluded. Swiss foot now making the final drive towards these cannons, silencing the guns of the great Prussian army of Count von Eisenhower, commanded by the nameless player.
Victory, sir, is soon to be yours.
So good game to my opponent, nameless. He was a good sport about it. It was a quick battle, and I enjoyed these kinds of 1v1 battles. Thank you all for watching. Go back and take a look at some of the other videos. We now have 4 up on the channel, including this one. So Hope you all are staying safe. Wear your mask, get your vaccine, and until then, I'll see you in the next one.